I saw a cigarette butt staring back at me.
And this could be the killer's cigarette.
Your DNA ended up in that car.
That's interesting.
Long?
I asked the coworkers who worked with him, can you tell me if you recognize anybody on this video? And they said, yeah, it's Donald.
You're saying that's not you?
That is definitely not me.
If he's telling the truth, which one of the two people is on the video?
Hold on, I'm not gonna implicate nobody else in no crime.
I was asking her who did this to her, but I didn't get any response. She was completely unconscious.
Janai was a fun, loving person.
I couldn't imagine anyone who would want to hurt her.
This is a difficult moment. I understand.
We were still waiting on him to figure out what he wanted to do.
Do you know where he's staying?
Nah, I guess he's gonna be the suspect.
No, I need to talk to him.
We had Gwinnett Mall and the lady just got shot.
Where at it? Gwinnett Place Mall? Yeah.
Where the bus station's at.
Is she breathing, conscious and alert?
Yeah, she moving a little.
Did you see where the person is that did it?
Yeah, he was in a car, but he pulled off. Like, it was like a beige car.
On that Friday night, I was performing an area check in that mall when the call came in of a person shot. So as I got out of my car and I began walking up, she was lying face down, and then that's when I rolled her over and located a single gunshot wound that went through her left breast. From my prior medical training, the first thing I did is cover the wound. At the same time, the med unit started to pull up. We taped my glove down to the chest to try and keep the wound stabilized, and then she went over to the hospital. But I found out that she had died that night.
My phone rang, and they said, hey, we need you out at 3492 Satellite Boulevard. We got a homicide. The supervisor had said, when the victim's at the hospital, she was a 40-year-old black female in very good physical shape and no identification on her. The first witnesses, all they could provide us was just maybe a gold-colored car. But the bus driver, Miss Owens, she saw a male walk around to the driver's side of the vehicle, call her a motherfucker, and then heard a gunshot. She was then pulled out of the vehicle, fell to the ground. He then got in the car and drove away. She said it was a black male. She said he was wearing white with green over top. Initially, I thought it might have been a domestic related, but as we're processing the scene, we're realizing without the victim, we can't even begin to find out who might want to harm her. Late in the evening, approximately 1:30 in the morning, I contacted the operator to see if there's any missing persons meeting the physical description and characteristics of our victim. Then about 2 hours later, I get a phone call from radio saying we have a woman, Camilla Coleman's reporting that her sister Janai's missing. She meets the physical description. I thought it was a very good chance that this could be our victim. I started driving to Camilla Coleman's house. At this point in time, it's 4-something a.m. I'm starting to figure out what information do I need to get from her. And at the same time, I'm thinking I might have to do a death notification.
On the evening of the 18th, around 11, I got a call from Adriana asking where her mother was because she wasn't there to pick her up. And I was like, well, she's not here either. And all of our calls were going to the voicemail. Janai was pretty much a stickler to a routine. So to not hear from her at all, that was unusual. I called the non-emergency police number to see if, they knew of anything that had happened. I heard from the detectives around 4 that morning. A feeling that I had, it was just, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. Detective Cruz goes over questions with me, asking if she had distinguishing marks on her body, and I kind of thought that was weird, and I kind of had an idea as well.
I remember looking at the refrigerator, and there was a picture of Janai there, and from the photo I had from the hospital, I was pretty certain it was her. And now is the delicate balance between investigation and notification. She's gonna be so distraught and upset that she won't be able to give me anything, which I need to solve her sister's murder. So I start off with saying, you reported her missing, what kind of vehicle did she have? She told me. Do you have the VIN number? Yes. Once she gave me some information, I had to show her the photograph from the hospital.
and it was her picture on the table. So I asked, is she okay? And they were like, no, she's not. I just stopped everything. I picked back up the phone and I called my sister and I told her, you know, she is gone. And I said, you're gonna have to call Mom, because I'm not calling her.
Janai was a very fun, energetic, loving person. She was the type of person that would literally give you the clothes off of her back.
She was an encourager, she was a mother figure, she was a counselor.
Janai worked as an elementary school teacher, and she decided to become a foster parent.
For her to adopt the 3 girls that she did, I wasn't surprised. She was always wanting to, you know, help girls be better.
She was a very precious, much loved person.
At this point in time, I know I've identified my victim. I know my crime scene is mobile, but I still don't know where it is. So I had another detective contact an operator, upload me the VIN number, then had to put it on the system. There was approximately an hour later, I get a call and he says, hey, we found your car. That vehicle was dumped the night of the murder in Forest Park, Georgia. And we went out there. When we first saw the vehicle, I'm ecstatic because now I have a lead, I have evidence, I have a scene. So I just took several photographs of the scene and the vehicle where it laid in place. We took the vehicle to controlled, secure environment at Gwinnett County Police headquarters. Meanwhile, I spoke with Janai's family members. And the family told me Janai Coleman was a hardworking, loving mother. She loved to be in the church. She even served in the military. She didn't have any enemies.
While the detectives were asking questions, trying to figure out who did this and why, my answer to all of that was, I couldn't imagine anyone who would want to hurt her.
So the only nugget I have, honestly, right now is the vehicle. And so I'm wondering, what has crime scene come up with?
Processing the exterior for fingerprints. We find fingerprints located on the door frame. And then I'm doing my interior photos. My camera actually flashed. I saw a cigarette butt staring back at me.
So I contacted Camille. I said, hey, does Janai smoke? And she's like, absolutely not. And so I was like, wow, this could be my killer's DNA.
We submit the sample to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Our results may take 6 months, it may take years. It's just the backlog.
The cigarette butt very well could be the killer's. I said, now I gotta wait on the lab. At this point in the investigation, I know I have my one scene where Janai was shot, and then I have where the vehicle was recovered in Forest Park. I've also got the physical description. And so what I'm doing is I'm looking through surveillance video from any store in and around that area where the murder occurred. It's kind of like fishing for a needle in a haystack. I'm just looking for hours and hours of different video. But then I found surveillance video from a gas station across the street. I start watching it for an hour or two before the incident. And I see a guy come in. And he's wearing a black baseball cap. He's on a cell phone. He's wearing the old softball shirts, you know, it's white on the front and it's got green sleeves. And he's carrying a duffel bag. I'm thinking, the guy looks a lot like the description that was provided. I was like, that's interesting, let's see what he does. Goes back outside, comes back in.
Welcome back. No, we're okay.
Buys a pack of cigarettes.
Bronson Light Longs.
Bronson Light Longs. So at this point, I'm thinking about the cigarette butt that we had recovered from the vehicle. So I reach out to specialist Brittany Barrington, and she sends me a picture of the filter. And then I'm pulling up the filter online, and the filter for the Bronson Light Longs looked like the one that we had a photograph of that was recovered inside the vehicle. I was really excited because I thought this could be my guy. And now I want to look at all the video, right? I'm watching video everywhere. So I pull up the Forest Park video that the Forest Park Police Department provided me. It's Chinagate. It's a restaurant directly next to where the car was dumped. And I'm watching it, and it must have been a fraction of a second, maybe a second. Goes up and comes off. Well, that looked weird. So I rewind it and I pause it. And it is the guy from the convenience store wearing a black duffel bag with a white shirt with green sleeves with khaki pants, not 15 feet from where the car was dumped. And I'm like, that's not a coincidence. This is my guy. I mean, this could be the guy who committed my murder. And so now I'm excited. Now I'm thinking, somebody's got to know who this guy is.
Detective Cruz put someone that fit the same description at the time of the murder here in Gwinnett County, as well as down in Forest Park where her car was located. The problem was identifying who that person was on the video.
And so at this point, I've talked to everybody who knows her. I followed up on all the phone records that were provided in her phone records. I've got cell phone tower dumps for where the scene in Gwinnett is and for Forest Park, but I can't compare them to anything. I've got all the surveillance video I could possibly collect from both locations, but I still don't know who this guy is. So I'm pretty much stuck until I can get something from DNA.
Time went by, but somewhere still lingering was just the hope that Janice's case would be solved. Within, you're like, if this case goes unsolved, there's gonna be one more murderer walking loose. So it was hard to wait on whose DNA was on that cigarette butt.
About a year after the incident, the picture of the suspect was produced to the public. And we were hoping, you know, beyond hope, that they'd be flooded with information, but unfortunately, no leads came in whatsoever.
And for a moment, you say, okay, well, maybe this crime is not gonna get solved. But until then, you continue to live. We just kept the faith. We just continued to pray and believe that something's good gonna come out of this.
Months after the murder, in December of 2008, I got a hit that they did identify that there was male DNA on the cigarette butt. So now we've got to get this DNA uploaded to CODIS, the Combined DNA Index System. And basically all it is everybody who is convicted of a felony, their DNA is uploaded onto that system. And what happens is it's cross-referenced, and then hopefully we can identify a possible suspect. I was definitely nervous, thinking, what if the DNA that comes back is somebody who's never murdered somebody before? What if they're not on the system? I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities. But in the back of my mind, I also think of somebody that left her there in the parking lot to die. They're gonna be on the system. When they upload it to CODIS, we're gonna get a match. Looking at all the evidence in this case, it's more than we have in a lot of cases. And it's frustrating because you know the family's still out there hurting and you can't do anything. You know, you're waiting on the lab and you're waiting on leads. So August 6, 2009, I get an email and then a phone call from the GBI crime lab. They say, hey, we got a DNA match. That cigarette butt comes back to a Donald Smith. I gotta find out who this guy is. Does he meet my height? Does he meet my weight? Does he meet my age requirements? Does he look like the guy I'm looking at on surveillance video? I'm screaming out to guys over my cubicle, I got a hit. I'm gonna find out if this is the guy.
I do remember one day getting a call from Detective Cruz asking if I knew a guy named Donald Smith, and I was thinking, I don't know him.
And we talked amongst ourselves, is a name significant to you for any particular reason? The answer was no, we don't know who this is.
Understanding that we had received the CODIS that we knew that Donald Smith clearly had been in this system for serious violent felonies. We were able to determine that he had felonies where he had used a weapon before. So we knew that we had the potential for somebody that didn't have qualms about committing a serious violent felony. Donald had violent tendencies.
I was able to isolate a 2009 report out of Atlanta Police Department in which he was involved in a dispute at his job in which he threatened a coworker at Illegal Seafoods. Initially, once I get his name and information, I get a photo of him, and he looks just like the person on the surveillance video. So what I did is I decided to meet with former coworkers, people who work with Donald, and I allowed them to view the video from the surveillance store. Because I was hoping somebody would recognize him in the video, and I was like, oh yeah, that's Donald. So I reached out, did court order requests for work records. The cell phone that he put on an application came back as a phone that was active in the area at Forest Park where the vehicle was dumped. So I contact Lisa and I tell her, hey, here's all the facts of the case, here's what's going.
Do we have enough probable cause to get a murder warrant for him? Absolutely. We had his DNA at the scene. We had phone numbers that matched in the area of the location that we'd had cell tower hits. We knew that we could put him here.
I got some information regarding him possibly being homeless, so I reached out to several of the local shelters. We get some information pertaining to a shelter that he picks up mail on a certain day. So we spot him in the parking lot, took him down and took him into custody. And so we put him in the car and he's like, what is this about? I want to know what I'm being charged with. And then we told him there was a murder. And he said, I'll talk. He said, I didn't kill nobody, I will talk. And so maybe it was a risk, but I felt I'm gonna show him all the evidence that I had, and it's gonna be an avalanche.
All right, Mr. Smith, as I just explained before, I gotta read you Miranda. Okay, having these rights, do you want to discuss it? I can explain it to you.
Yeah, I would like you to just to explain to me why I'm here.
Okay. Really, it's about this vehicle, okay? I'm gonna ask you questions. Have you ever seen this vehicle before or been in it?
No, I have not.
Have you ever met this woman before in your life?
No, I haven't.
I'm not gonna just jump in and say, hey, did you kill this person? You know, I need him to confirm. Maybe he knew the victim. And he looks at the photo, he looks right at her and says, never seen her in my life before. So then I show him the weight of the evidence against him.
That vehicle you said you've never seen before, and the woman you've never seen before,
yes.
Okay? Your DNA ended up in that car.
That's interesting because my DNA couldn't have been in that car because I've never been in that car.
Do you see the issue we're up against? You know, I was hoping you said, yeah, I saw her, I used to work with her, we hung out for a minute and that was it, but I left. When I left, she was very much alive. Well, something like that we can somewhat explain away. But when you say you didn't never even seen her before, how the hell did his DNA get in the car if he didn't even know her?
No, I don't know her. Never seen her.
He's kind of just relaxed in the room, but I felt from his mannerisms that he was deceptive. And so I felt, you know, let me show him this video. It's gonna be overwhelming how much information we have on this case to point in the correct direction.
I have a picture basically on a computer I want you to look at and let me know if you recognize it as yourself or not, okay?
Sure.
This is the day I'm talking about, Gwinnett County.
Oh, am I looking at this guy right here?
Yeah. You're saying that's not you?
That is definitely not me. I don't have a shirt like that. I only can't even see the face on that person, but that's not me.
He's like, nope, that's not me. But his phone was active at the scene of this murder.
You work for Legal Seafoods, correct, sir?
Yes, I do.
All right. I got a fax from them, okay? The phone number, okay, that you listed as a contact number, okay, was in communication in that store at the time that person's in the video. Make sense?
And he's like, well, what is this application about? Why is this so important? I said, well, the phone number is important because that phone was at the scene of where this murder occurred and where the car was dumped. And so I'm hoping he starts to tell me the truth about everything based on the cell phone records that we had. That puts him in possession of the phone the night of the murder.
And then your cell phone number at the time was 404-200.
Correct?
No, that was not mine. That was my brother's phone number.
Okay, does he live in Gwinnett County?
Yes, he does.
And what's your brother's name, sir?
Ronald. Ronald.
Is he older, younger? Does he live at the same address as your parents?
He's my twin.
Twin?
Yeah.
Like born at the same time or identified as that?
Like born at the same time, like identical twins, yeah.
Okay.
This becomes real interesting because, as a matter of fact, DNA is split between 10 twins. It's indistinguishable. They share DNA, identical twins. I've never been in that car.
When he says it, I'm thinking, we knew you had a brother and we thought they were identical twins before the interview began. And honestly, up until that point, everything led us to Donald. The coworkers who had worked with both of them said it's him. I knew there was a criminal history on him, but we didn't really have that criminal history on his brother, Ronald. Then I started wondering if Donald was telling the truth. Which one of the two people is on the video? I know it's one of them. Which one?
You have any explanation for me or Detective Cruz, how would your DNA get in that young lady's car?
If I don't know the young lady, never seen her, there would have to be somebody who shares my DNA, obviously.
Conclusion, I'm jumping to what you're saying. If it's somebody shared DNA, then it will have to be either you or your brother.
Obviously.
Okay.
The DNA mattered, clearly, because that helped lead us to these two brothers. The problem was that it was not going to be that key piece of evidence that makes the difference. We had to have something that we could actually distinguish them with in order to prove our case beyond a reasonable doubt.
Your brother's phone, what color is his phone?
Look, hold on, I'm not gonna implicate nobody else in no crime.
You're not implicating, I'm just asking you what color is your brother's phone?
Do you know where he's staying?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do.
Where is that, sir?
Well, because now I guess he's gonna be the suspect.
No, I need to talk to him.
If your brother did something that stupid, you need to go ahead and just extricate yourself from the whole situation.
You're right. I don't think I need counseling on that. This is a difficult moment.
I understand.
At this point, we don't even know if he's telling the truth. I didn't think two people were involved in the crime because we had witnesses describing one suspect at the scene. And so I'm thinking, is it you? And if it's not, then it's gotta be your brother. And I'm thinking, well, you're telling me you're telling the truth. Would you be willing to take a polygraph?
You mentioned previously that you would do a polygraph. Do you want to just do that?
No, but I want to know, now, when I refuse this test, you gonna go ahead and book me and take me over where you're gonna take me to?
Right now you are charged, you are under arrest. I'll tell you what, I'll just go ahead and give you some time. You want some fresh water?
No.
Once we go outside, I was looking at the stuff he had on his person. He had a pack of cigarettes, but they weren't the Bronson Light Long. So I was looking at all the other evidence we had out there while we were still waiting on him to figure out what he wanted to do.
As a supervisor, you're sitting back and you're watching it through the monitoring room. You'd like to think an innocent person will go forward, because if you didn't do it, you want to clear your name, you want to show, why not take a polygraph? I told the guys, I've seen innocent people in an interrogation room. I'm just getting that vibe. The way he's talking, I said, we may have the wrong guy.
Right down. You got the person downstairs, I guess, to set it up. I just leave it up to you. Would you like to go ahead and take it? Yeah, in there.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, fuck it, I'll take it. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm working outside while the polygraph examiner's doing their job. Detective Merchant completed the polygraph examination. And then the results of that examination that was relayed to me was Donald failed the polygraph test. Now I'm thinking, okay, did he actually do it? Detective Lorenzo and him get done with the polygraph and then comes back in and he goes, hey, he just told me that he recognized the person on the video as his brother. And I'm like, are you serious? So it's another big twist in this case, but there's some headway now, right? Let's see what he has to say and why he's lying. If he's saying now it's his brother, why did he lie before when we showed him the video and asked him if he recognized the person?
All right, Donald. Now, obviously, when we show you the video before, and at the time, obviously you said it wasn't you. And you had mentioned to me that you felt strongly it was your brother.
Yeah, it's my twin. Now, in light of the fact that I've taken this polygraph, I had no reservations about taking that whatsoever. The lady says that it showed deception, and when she was asking me the questions, the only thing I kept seeing was my brother doing something like that. It's devastating, actually. As if anyone that we know, mother and father, was to see that same video, anybody that we know, would know that that's him and not me. Not only by demeanor, but certainly by dress.
You really want to know, is he trying to put it off on his brother? Or is he now protecting his brother? And he goes as far to say, you can ask anybody who knows us that they'll pick him out. They'll say it's my brother. And I'm thinking, you know what, that's a great idea.
We're not dusting Donald off and saying, hey, we're sorry about this inconvenience. Legally, we were good to arrest him. Collectively, all of us said, this is what we're gonna do. If he's the guy, we got the right guy. If he's not the guy, then we're gonna use what he told us to build the case on Ronald. We showed the video to Donald's parents and Donald's sister.
It was one of those things where we knew when we got there we were gonna kind of have to bluff a little bit and kind of get them to cooperate without realizing they were cooperating. And we told them that either Ronald or Donald had witnessed a crime in the area, and we just couldn't tell which one it was because they're twins.
And all three said that the person in the video was Ronald. We just now have went from one suspect to two suspects.
At this point in time, it's all hands on deck to locate Ronald. Where is he at? Where is he resting his head? Where can we find him? The family didn't say where he was, and so the next morning, that's the first thing we start doing. We start looking to track him down. So I took a calculated risk. They both had a cell phone number that they used. Donald put it on his application. I picked up the phone and I called him. He answered the phone. He told me, yes, he'd be willing to meet me, no problem. Later that day, we set up a time to meet. Right about 30 minutes prior to that meeting time, he calls me back, says, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to make it.
At that time, we all started thinking Ronald might have something to do with this.
We needed to find Ronald as quick as humanly possible.
Immediately when Ronald started saying, nope, I'm not gonna be able to make my appointment, it raised a lot of red flags.
I was actually on my way to Atlanta, where Ronald said he was going to meet me, but he said he was not there. He was actually in Gwinnett.
I told Henley to go out to the parents' house, and he ultimately locates Ronald there.
Detective Cruz had already secured a search warrant for the DNA, bodily fluids, and fingerprints. That was our main reason to take him into custody. And we took him over to the police car and drove him up to headquarters.
We absolutely needed Ronald's fingerprints as well as Donald's fingerprints. That's the one thing that could truly distinguish them. Their DNA is going to be the same, but no two people have the exact same fingerprints, even identical twins.
When I get to headquarters, this is the first time I've actually seen Ronald in person. Take a look at him and realize, wow, he does resemble his brother. I mean, they looked strikingly similar.
All right, Ronald.
I think we need to draw some blood or something.
You want him to draw the blood first?
Just, yeah,
Well, you tell me what you want to do.
During the conversation, he wanted to know what this was about. So I made the decision, let him see what's going on. You know, here, let's let him watch the video. We thought your brother was at the crick trip. This looks like your brother. Watch the video. He watched the video. And we have DNA. And we have fingerprints from the vehicle where the victim was murdered. And that is why we're here today, to get your fingerprints, to eliminate you as a possible suspect. He already knew his brother had been arrested. Ronald was worried about him.
So then my brother can be released?
I want to make sure that the right person is who we're dealing with. If your brother's not, then everything is put into place right now to get him out.
So at this point, we explain until we identify which one of them committed the crime. They're both suspects. I think he realized the weight of the evidence against him and his brother.
And if you look at the video, there's a portion in time where he's just not at the right place to talk to us.
Can you, whatever you're gonna say, could you put it on hold for just a little while?
Why is that?
Just, can you?
So we take a pause.
He wants to take a cigarette break.
Oh, Lord.
So I say, you know, hey, Detective Restrepo, you mind taking him outside, smoke a cigarette?
I remember it very vividly. He took out his cigarettes, and I had seen pictures of the other one. I was like, that's the same Bronson Brandon.
They smoke a cigarette, they come back in. Detective Restrepo slides the cigarette butt up to me. I take a look at the crime scene photo. I'm flipping through my file. Sure enough, I hold it right up to that photograph, and it's an identical match to the cigarette butt that was behind the driver's side seat. My first thing is, let's get these fingerprints before we go back into the interview room. And I want my crime scene tech up here right now.
When we get the call that we have the additional fingerprints for Ronald Smith, then the comparison starts immediately.
Prior to going into the interview room, Brittany gives us some phenomenal news, and she says, hey, the prints that we retrieved from the car were a match to Ronald's prints. Donald's fingerprints don't match to Ronald's prints. Although they have the same DNA, what they wouldn't share are the same fingerprints.
So at this point in time, Ronald's no longer free. He is not going anywhere. His cigarette butt matches up. We've got his fingerprints. But changed from we're giving you information and we need to do search warrants to this is an in-custody interrogation.
So then you go, okay, what do we believe at this point? We got the fingerprints, we have all this evidence, so we felt we got the right guy here. But again, it's always better to get the confession if you can get it.
Without his confession, you just always wonder what happened. And a jury may wonder the same thing, you know, did he do it? We decided to go in there and tell him it was a given fact that you did commit this crime, but we'd like to know why. It can be a risky tactic, you know, because they could just clam up and say, you know, forget you, I didn't do it. But I think knowing the weight of the evidence against him played in our favor.
Now we're gonna turn up the notch, and now we're gonna start hitting you with some facts that you're not gonna be able to dispute. Ronald, this is where we're at. This is it. After we conclude here in the next few minutes, you'll be taken over to the county jail. And the next time that you see Detective Cruz will be in a preliminary hearing. He will present everything that he has on the case, which is overwhelming. When I mean video, the DNA, the prints, the phone records. You say you're not responsible or not. Well, what is it that you're responsible for? What is it?
I don't know what I don't know what to tell you. I really don't.
And was this something accidental? There's something like that I can almost understand.
Most people are gonna wanna minimize the hell out of that incident to tell you, look, it was an accident or something went wrong. And that's what we were doing, minimizing things and getting them to give some details. Ronald, you really don't have a history of harming people. Do you understand that?
I'm just not prepared to give any kind of a statement.
Okay.
I think it was about an hour from when we initially spoke to him. I recall we went back outside, myself and Detective Restrepo, and I remember thinking, identical twins that had known each other their whole lives, almost 50 years, would want to confide in the other to give him some information. We wanted him to speak to Donald in hopes that he would confide in him. You know, he might tell him what happened, why did it happen?
Can you tell me why? I can't tell. I can't.
Basically, Donald goes in there and just asks him, will you tell me what happened? You know, why? Ronald says, I can't tell you. Ronald's not really communicating with Donald. We make the decision to go in and speak with Donald and have him step out of the room.
Donald?
Yes.
Come on out for me, please.
Now I'm thinking, okay, if he's denying it, let's see if we can appeal to the human side of him.
This is the woman, okay? And her name was Janai, okay? She had 3 adopted children. She was a school teacher. Her family, they're very religious people. And they were more just wanted to know why than anger. And I promised them I would at least ask.
I can't. That's where I just can't say it right now.
Okay.
Detective Cruz was very diligent in, you know, kind of keeping us abreast as to what they found, and that kept our hopes up. You know, that, you know, at some point there would be closure.
Once we painted who she was, and you could tell he looked at that picture and he just, oh my God, and he had the picture up and I was like, oh, it's coming. So at that point, I just felt that chipping away at him, he was gonna break. Because as far as I know, from when you walked away from that car in Forest Park, I'm sure that you haven't done anything like this. That's just my opinion, but the inevitable is gonna happen. You're either gonna come to trial and this thing's gonna come in light in front of 12 jurors, or, which in a lot of cases, the judges wanna know why. When people plea, they want to go, why did you do this? Because they demand, and the judges want you to tell the family why their loved one is no longer with them. That's exactly what they want. Those are the 2 options here. Now, you've been living this for a while, I would imagine. I imagine this thing's been eaten up at you. It has to be.
Like all of a sudden. This is like all of a sudden on me. And I want to say something. I'll tell you what. Can I use the bathroom? Okay. Smoke one cigarette.
Okay.
And
we'll come back and talk. He's about to break. I was like, all right, this is the last cigarette break.
He's outside, he's calm, the air is cool, and I think it got him relaxed. And so we decide to go back into the interview room.
Feel more comfortable over there? I'm just trying to give you your space.
And normally I wouldn't sit there. I'd let him sit in front of the camera, but he just wanted to be there. And he's just sitting there, we're all kind of just sitting in the room, and he drops a bombshell.
Guilty. I don't know why. It was an accident.
You know, inside I'm like, I'm trying to celebrate, but you're also trying to contend with your emotions to keep a good face.
When he said those words, I was like, thank God. At that point, it's just a matter of getting him to give some details.
It was a hair trigger. I set out to take a car. That was something I'd done before when I was way younger. The gun went off. She said, he shot me.
You know, he's still minimizing taking the car. Really, what he's saying is, I'm committing a carjacking, you know? It went off means I shot her. And so now I wanted him to take through not just the steps of what happened in the sequence during the murder, but things that I didn't have answers to that would help solidify the case.
Is this semi-auto revolver?
It was 357. I think it was 5 shots. And then I went and sold it before I ended up doing something stupid again. I took the car down to the Forest Park there.
He gave his depiction of why it happened. And, you know, once you have that and you put that evidence in conjunction with the DNA and the photographs and the video, and then him specifying the caliber weapon that was used, he knew details that nobody else would know.
You know, her family, this was something they really wanted to know as far as closure, okay?
You can tell them that taking someone's life was not in the mix. It was no part of the picture. You can tell them it was a straight accident.
In all my years, I don't know that I've had a person just outright say, I just killed him and I enjoyed it and this is what I did. And I wasn't expecting to get that out of Ronald, but he certainly had some emotion. He showed characters of being remorseful, being sorry for what he did.
Ronald, thank you. I know that was difficult for you, but I thank you.
So Ronald Smith, on February 6, 2010, was arrested for the murder of Shania Coleman. Because of the admission coupled with all the other evidence, it clearly showed and established that Ronald was the killer and not his brother, Donald.
It was only after we had his fingerprints and his confession that we allowed his brother, Donald, to be released that day. Basically, his guilt is what freed his brother.
If you were trying to typecast the two brothers, Donald is the one you would think had committed this offense because that's the one who had threatened coworkers, who had committed other serious crimes. You would think that's who you're gonna lean towards and who you think the evidence is gonna take you towards. What was interesting though was that the good brother, so to speak, Ronald, was the one who was involved in this murder.
In February, we received a call from Detective Cruz, and he let us know that we have someone we believe is responsible for your sister Jania's death. And we just got together and we just began to rejoice.
It was a hope that finally we were going to get some justice.
The case finally came to trial in October of 2012. The defense attorney called Donald Smith to the stand. Fortunately, he didn't lie. He was adamant, I had nothing to do with this murder. I know that that was difficult because Donald basically was saying, my brother killed this woman. Ultimately, in closing arguments, the defense argued Donald was the one that committed this murder. It was disturbing because not only did Ronald confess to doing this, but now he's gone to trial, he's put all of us through this, and now he's blaming somebody else.
I thought, what family dynamics that you would be at ease in letting your brother go to prison for something that you did, your twin brother at that. That ain't love.
The jury only deliberated for about 2 hours before they reached a verdict. Ronald Smith was found guilty of all of the charges in the indictment, which included felony murder, as well as hijacking a motor vehicle.
The judge sentenced life plus 25 years. And at his age, he's not coming out. This is definitely a once-in-a-lifetime case for me. A murder that takes place where the DNA leads you to the brother who didn't do it. I've never had a case like that in my life, and I haven't had one since.
The greatest strength that I witnessed in the courtroom that day was my mother-in-law, because when it was over, she went to his mom. His mom apologized to my mother-in-law, and she said, "I understand, because I lost my daughter and you lost your son."
There are still days when I can hear her laughter. I can hear her talking with me. At this point, I still miss her as my daughter.
After her passing, we were able to launch Janiyah Excellence Academy because she already had plans of coming home back to Elkhart, Indiana to start a preschool there.
It was a tragedy that she went out, but we refused to allow her memory to remain as such. She was not going to be a tragedy, but she was going to be a success.